What's going on, y'all? Welcome back. I know I haven't made a video in a long time. This is going to be my post Mexico update. I think I might speak a little Spanish at the end. We'll see. Um, I was tempted to make this whole video in Spanish, but for the people who don't, I still want this to be for the people who don't quite understand Spanish or maybe the level of comprehension isn't high enough yet. I still wanted to be to a point where they wouldn't have any issues understanding me. So, yeah, for now, instead of doing that, we're gonna just keep it in English. But yeah, so for y'all who don't know, went to Mexico. I went to Mexico as an advanced speaker of Spanish. Not to Mexico. I went to Mexico, but I went to and also attended a Spanish immersion school, and I did this already achieving already what I would consider an advanced level of Spanish. I would consider myself quite fluent in the language at this point, and so I wanted to see what that would do for me. I had two objectives. One being improve my Spanish and put myself in a Spanish dominant or primarily Spanish environment with Spanish, friends, family, whatever. Try to recreate that situation to the best of my ability while also maintaining a certain, while also being on vacation. So it had two purposes. It was a two-pronged tactic, I guess you could say. And so my reason for this, or those are my reasons for it, but now I'm going to get into my Spanish level before actually going to the trip. And so my Spanish level before was, like I said, pretty fluent, but I still lacked certain areas in my grammar. And for the last, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 months, it's been pretty plateaued. Like I haven't really progressed much past, like I haven't really progressed much. Maybe I've gotten a little bit more fluent in terms of my output, but I still made the same mistakes I made 10 months ago. And I've improved my vocabulary touch just due to still enjoying content. Because I haven't stopped enjoying content. I've just stopped caring about improving my level, and so it kind of plateaued out. And so I was looking for a way, and the main reason for that was because I do live in Texas, and here there are a lot of Spanish speakers, but the Spanish speakers, even though there are a lot of Spanish speakers, I live in a predominantly English speaking environment. And even when I do run into people that speak Spanish, it's in a very superficial or very surface level situations that I've already, like, this represents like my necessity or my ability, my need to communicate on this level. And so I've met that, and I've even surpassed it by quite a bit. And so the further I got away from like my actual objective need for Spanish and my ability to like achieve that, like my desire to want to push higher than that and just keep pushing that line, even though it never, my needs never went up or increased, kind of caused me to like kind of plateau out and not really be very motivated to keep pushing on like that. And so this trip was a way of like reinvigorating that, if either reinvigorating that and keep me going, or putting a cap on kind of my journey and just going on from there. Like I've spent over 4 years studying or immersing in my room plus studying, trying to achieve the best level of Spanish I can, practicing, all aspects of language, pronunciation, intonation, comprehension, whatever, to the best of my ability, trying to get the best level to meet with my goals and my objectives in the language. And I've pretty much accomplished all of those. So there's nothing really past that. And so as a result, I ended up plateauing out pretty hard. Probably still progressing, but very slowly. Hard to notice, honestly, just with just a little bit more vocab here and there. And so from that point on, I really wanted something more. I wanted to shake it up, basically. And I really needed a vacation. I was working a lot, so I really wanted a vacation at the same time. And so as a result, it kind of all culminated in this. I've been planning, and I ended up planning a trip to Mexico, to Puebla, and so which is 2 hours south of Mexico City, so it's in southern Mexico. And I picked that location for several reasons. One of them was being that it's not a super touristy city, so it's not going to be, at the very least, it's American influence or U.S. influence is going to be not as crazy as it would be in like the north or very touristy cities like Cancun. So as a result, I didn't want to do that. Also, as a result, I picked that. Also, the merger school is very good. It was very conversation dependent, very like it's structured based off of conversing and being corrected. And I think that's the thing that I needed to use the most, do the most. And so I picked it for that. Also, has a lot of history behind the city. There's a volcano there, an active volcano. Like, why not, You know, be in the city next to an active volcano. What could go wrong, right? There was several things that kind of lined up. I have a buddy there, you know, from Discord that I know that he also went to Puebla. I found that out later, but yeah, we ended up hanging out a bunch. It's cool. So like, there was a lot of reasons why I wanted to go. That's the reason I picked it. That's kind of where my level of Spanish was. Now, when I got there, and that's this, I'm going to be kind of overlapping with the video prior, just in case people haven't seen my mini update when I was in there for a week. I'm assuming I think I was there for a week. But basically, the way it went, I got to the school. I did the pre-test, which was like I don't know. It was a lot quicker than the online pre-test, which is weird. It was maybe half the questions. The online was like 100 questions. This one was like half. But basically, I took that test, and they put me. And then I did an a speaking exam. I don't know. That just sounded sus. But anyway, a speaking exam, and they put me in level 7 out of 8. And then a couple weeks in, they moved me to level 8, and then I kind of did that. So I had to. There's only 8 levels, and those, you know, 8's considered, you know, beyond. There's like no, it's considered C1 plus. It's like level 8, and so even though I beg to disagree based off of the students, the level of students there. But that's basically just where the grammar instruction ends, and level 7 is like there's a lot of conversation and some grammar, and level 8 is just like all conversation. But anyway, I got placed in level 7 to level 8, and it was only 2 people in the class, me and my buddy, and we were in class and we did that. I had a much higher level than my classmate. Pretty much had a much higher level than pretty much anybody at the school. Mainly being due to sheer time, over 4 years learning Spanish. I guess a lot of people have also been learning. They had been learning Spanish for years, but in terms of the focus and dedication, on top of the immersion aspect of it, because the vast majority of people, pretty much all the people at that school weren't immersion learners. I know in the immersion learning community, some people think that it's like everyone is immersion learning. Not even immersion, like in the language learning community, people think that everyone's like a course you learn through immersion, which is good, has become like dead obvious. But if you ever interact with people outside of like Reddit, or like these self-selected, highly, you know, niche language learning communities, and you actually interact with people like normally, like I used to go to like language learning meetups around my city and stuff, you will find that the vast majority of people are like Duolingo, Pimsleur, you know, Babbel, like type, you know, 4 years in high school or 3 years in college type learners. Like that's like the bulk of people that learn languages. And so as a result, that's kind of what the experience was. So you definitely had people that like had been learning languages for like 10 years or something like that, but it was all traditional. And so there were limitations with that. They might not have been the most consistent, et cetera, et cetera. Or a lot of people that were retired, they were retired and moving to Mexico kind of thing. And so you ran into that. But so as a result, there was like a noticeable gap. And when I got there, teachers were definitely asking me, like, my teacher, that was the first thing we gave our introductions. My classmate was like, am I crazy, or is this guy really good? And my teacher turned to me and is like, yeah, question. So why are you here? And then I had to explain to her my reasonings and what I was looking for. And she said, okay. And so she ended up kind of throwing out the book, essentially, because we literally had books. We never used them. She ended up essentially throwing out the book and kind of like freestyling it almost, or like trying to create a new method around what I needed specifically, and basically what she noticed. And so the first week she was doing taking a lot of notes and introduced me in a lot of different situations, had me talk about a lot of different things. Me and my classmate, we kind of were both in for the long haul. And week 2 was a lot of grammar structure. Week 3 was prompting the use of those kind of grammar structures and things that we learned. And week 4 was just pure talking, and with the corrections of those grammar things. So, two takeaways. I think in terms of I would do. Well, I'll get into that later, actually. But that was the kind of thing. Now I'll get into how my Spanish felt during that process, during going to school. And honestly, it was like really tough. The first week, I got very fluent because I was speaking Spanish literally 8 hours a day, oftentimes 10 hours of just pure conversation. So I got super fluent, super comfortable. Wasn't even thinking about it, no issues. Like much, like it was a step above where I was before getting there, right? Um, then after that, after all the grammar instruction kind of beat me into the ground, and plus after all the correction, I then got more insecure in my Spanish. Not really mentally insecure, more so it caught me. I was thinking so much about there was only like 3 or 4 things that I really needed to correct. There were like habitual things, and but constantly parsing and thinking about when to use those, how to use those, and understanding all the rules and all the things in Spanish. Everything, the whole entire school is completely in Spanish. I guess I should go. The layout of it is 4 hours of instruction with your teacher completely in Spanish, and then 2 hours, 2.5 hours with your guide, which is somebody from college, from the local university that they pair you with, and you go around the city. You do whatever you want to do, just with your guide, and there's just like a buddy that accompanies you around the city. That's kind of the structure of the school. So 6 to 6.5 hours of instruction, and then maybe an hour and a half with fellow students that you're supposedly speaking Spanish. A lot of students weren't. In my case, we were. Anybody I was hanging out with, if you weren't speaking in English or you weren't speaking Spanish, I wasn't really hanging out with you too much. Um, so yeah, and then I would go home, take the bus home to my host family, and then we would speak Spanish. So for like 2-3 hours, yeah, 2-3 hours for sure. Um, so yeah, that was basically it. A lot of Spanish speaking, but after that second week of grammar, and then the third week of trying to implement it, like I was speaking like 2 rungs slower than I normally would because I was trying to like wrap my head around those uses and through corrections and things like that. And I would also go home and like Google like Spanish learners, people learning Spanish, and then watch for those same mistakes in their Spanish. And I would even record a video myself and speaking, and I would watch for myself for those mistakes, and I would try to, while I was talking, things like that, and ask ChatGPT, when should I use this, when shouldn't I use that, etc., and kind of try to piece together when and where and how and whatever, and why you use one structure versus the other. And basically, I was learning a lot of nuance and different levels of communication, and what is this implying, or when you say this instead of that, yeah, they mean the same thing, but this is implying something a little more this way, and that's implying something more that way, kind of thing. Um, and some of those more complicated structures. And so, yeah, the second week was kind of brain melting. The third week was like taxing, mentally taxing, because I was trying to implement it. And the fourth week was still pretty tough. But it was starting to make sense after those couple weeks. The grammar and structure was starting to make sense, and I still, my confidence like had bombed. But outside of the school, I will say this: outside of the school, interacting with people around the city, going to the mall, buying tickets to this, going to see this, we went to like lucha libre. Going, I was like haggling tickets. Like it was weird. It's like this weird dichotomy where in school I was like a nervous wreck, but then out of school, because I just didn't worry about mistakes. Like sometimes I would, but most of the time I didn't. I was trying to notice things. I was like incredibly. I had no issues in the city. I had no issues getting around, communicating. I didn't just survive. I would thrive. Like I was cracking jokes, having people laugh, whatever. We would go to all kinds of stuff. I'm very personable, so even in Spanish, and so like I would kind of have that effect, and had no issues. But I would get into school and I'm talking, and I'm like, oh, but within the city, like I was able, the level I was already at before that was sufficient to live and work in the city, basically. Minus the vocab. There's a lot of little vocab I needed, like, the word for like sidewalks and, street lights and, whatever, like random, you know, nouns around the city that like I had to learn, like all the little shop names, they have like millions of different types of stores, and you have to like learn the shop names, things like that. You just got to learn. Outside of that type of vocabulary that I did acquire a lot of while I was there, because obviously, like what, you're living there basically. Got a phone and whatever. Like you just end up learning a lot of words, especially the words for like and for Dia de Muertos. You just end up learning a lot of words around that too. But yeah, so vocabulary was expanding, things like that. I was very competent and very functional, highly functional outside the school, but in the school and even sometimes before and after, I would be a little hesitant because I was constantly trying to think. And that, to me, that's a part of the process. Some people might look at that as a bad thing, but I look at it as kind of two ways where when you get to like an advanced level, you have two, when you get to start to output, you have two objectives. Two roads. You need to eventually get both, but you can start either get fluency first, shoot for fluency first, become very fluent, but have quite a few errors, riddled with errors, one might say, or you can go for being correct, being more accurate, but you're gonna lack in fluency. So some people go for accuracy first and then slowly build up. They achieve a high level of accuracy and they slowly build up a level of fluency as they go. Other people, in this the route I took, because to me fluency was more important than accuracy in the beginning, or not in the beginning, but just for communicating and being, well liked within, with people and stuff like that. So I chose fluency first, and this school and just even in general that I'm going for accuracy now after fluency kind of thing, or high level of fluidity more so, because you can be already fluent, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But just I was looking for a high level of fluidity, basically. And so after that point, I've been really trying to work on the accuracy. And naturally, when you're working on accuracy, fluency is going to drop. That's natural. And so, but now I feel like I'm on the upturn because I didn't want to make a video immediately after the fact, after coming back, because I felt like there were so many things that were kind of loose and they were kind of, the pieces were starting to be put together and they were starting to link up. I just needed more time to like consume, immerse, and listen for the things that I need to work on or the things that I learned. And that's what I've been doing for like the last week, essentially, since I've been back. I've been like locked in listening to, immersing like I normally would, but listening for the specific things to get to the point where those things are dead obvious. Like once I get to the point where those, like that grammar point or that thing is dead obvious, then I can comfortably use it in my own output. So when I notice it, and then if I have and then I think, why did they use it here? Oh, because this situation, this was like a hypothetical thing. But they used this instead of that because this was like had a low chance of probability or never happening. And this one, this is like something still plausible essentially. And so I kind of go through that and kind of, oh, okay, to understand the why behind why they said something as opposed to the what they said. And then, so yeah, things are starting to click. I'm starting to notice really well. Like, for example, I watched my own video back. It was an interview or video that we made, me, Neon, and Austin made. I watched that back, and I was able to hear several instances where I missed out, like I completely got wrong, and I didn't even notice at the time the things that I learned at the school, like the main 3 or 4 grammar things that they were like drilling in my head essentially, which I remember distinctly watching before there when the video first dropped. I listened to the video on my way to work, and I didn't hear those mistakes. I heard mistakes, but I didn't hear those mistakes. And so for me, that's kind of proof that the method to the madness is working. It's kind of really sinking in. And so I think in the next month or two, like I'm going to be like 90%, anywhere from 80 to 90% done with that kind of grammar thing. I think I'm still going to still mess up the certain uses of the subjunctive, but I'm really noticing those as well. That kind of thing. I guess the main issues that I'm working on, I actually have a list here. Funny enough, so the things that I was messing up and I still need to work on, these are the things they were correcting me on. So, or that I noticed that I have, it's a little clunky in my head. So, ser y estar, I know when to use one inverse to the other for the most part, but it gets a little funny when it's in the past tense, like si fuera o si estuviera, right? That kind of gets funny. It's like my brain forgets which form is which. Like I forget fuera is supposed to be ser because fuera is also like 2 other things, or whatever. So I'm iffy when it comes to the past tense. That's probably the weakest tense that I have, that I'm the weakest in. As well as being consistent with the uses of the tense when speaking in the past. That's a thing that I noticed, especially during the video with Neon. I wasn't consistent with so if I was saying estaba, I had to say tenía, but I would say estaba en tuve, or tuve, or tuvo or tuve, whatever, depending on the thing. that kind of stuff. Um, I'm still iffy with the third person and first, second, and third person preterite. For whatever reason, I think it's just a matter of I'm very comfortable in present tense. I'm general very comfortable in like the indefinite, but when it comes to the preterite, things are a little weak for whatever reason. It's not like I don't know. It's weird, and I make the most mistakes when I'm speaking in the present or the past or the preterite tense or whatever. Um, Again, the next one was familiarizing myself with all the various triggers of the subjunctive. That's something that we definitely went through as well. Um, as well as using understanding. I had like basically no understanding of the past subjunctive, like none. And so we went through all of that. We reviewed all of that. Um, we also went. We also went through the various uses of se because there will be times where I would forget se, you know, and then gender agreement. But gender agreement is always a thing. So gender agreement will always be a thing. So yeah, those are like the things that they really drilled me on and we really worked on. I says, and so yeah, no, I'm pretty optimistic about it now. So I'm pretty optimistic. I think at this point my level is much higher. It didn't feel like it. I think it's and right now it's still just after, so it hasn't really been a massive jump. I feel the main things that I've noticed after the trip is my comfort my comfort and confidence in myself is so much higher. Just interacting with Spanish normally here, like it is so much more steady. Like for people who've heard me speak Spanish, they might think like, "Oh, you dude sounds very confident and very comfortable in language," and that is true. But but I still would have a bit of nerve. I would still be a bit nervous or have a little bit of a touch of anxiety when interacting with people outside, and that was always a problem for me interacting with people outside or something like that. Because I was like, oh no, with the situation, I don't know this, whatever. I don't. You never know. This could happen. What if they say something I don't understand or this? I would always have problems. And so after doing that, I was able to, um, basically after that, I was able to get comfortable. The confidence I have now, due to the sheer amount of situations I was in, whether I was at a concert or I was at a football match and I was asking people next to me about like the team and the score like I was interacting with so many natives in so many different situations that like even ordering in McDonald's was like murder for like the first time I did it, right? But now it's like I have so much confidence in myself when talking. Like I don't think about like I feel like I'm oozing with confidence. And so that's much different than when it was before. Um, and also, yeah, my confidence in the grammar now, where before I would be speaking and I know I made a mistake, but I didn't know how exactly I made a mistake or why. Now I feel like, especially when I'm talking in the past tense, I feel like I know exactly I'll make a mistake and I'll know exactly what the mistake was and what I should have said immediately, as opposed to this kind of vague feeling of insecurity, like I don't know, that kind of thing. So I feel like in terms of question of a lot of grammar has been like at least my weak points, right? Because they specifically targeted my weak points. That's all just come completely, like not completely, but mostly gone. Obviously, I don't know what I don't know. So if there's anything else, who knows? Now, question is, would I recommend the school or any particular immersion school, like immersion school in general, especially for people that are like immersion learners and even people who've achieved a high level? Yes, I would. Unless the only way I would recommend it, not even 100% because it'll massively just explode your like crazy boost your level in Spanish. You'll be, like not even just saying that it will. I think you'll definitely improve, but because this is what I recommend. If you get a host family, if you take private classes, that's the one thing. If I could do it again, I would take private classes and I would do it for longer than a month. Unless you're really just there for vacation like I was, but now I'm like, dang, I probably should stay for like 2 more weeks, bro. I should have stayed not even for the school, just because of friends and stuff I made down there. I'm like, I didn't have enough time. Should have been down there for a little bit longer. I would say 2 months, especially if you're already highly functional in language. There was a lot of people in the school that they can understand their teachers, but everything was a blur outside. And they, or people who were supposed to be in a similar level as me and a classmate, or really my classmate, but they would go to school and then they would go to a hotel and they'll just be in the hotel. And they go to school in the morning, and they'll do that. A lot of people are very passive in their learning. They like, let the school teach me. Which I understand. You're paying $1,000. You would definitely assume the school. You would definitely hope the school is teaching you, but that's still not sufficient enough. Like, there's plenty of people who are like, I know all the grammar. They're telling me all this grammar. My problem is speaking. I say, okay, well, how often do you speak? Well, not much. Okay, that sounds like you have a problem speaking. But it's like, but also, how well do you understand? Not much. Well, I can understand my teachers, but people that aren't my teachers, I can't understand. Okay, well, sounds like, like the school, we're talking and we're in Spanish for a long time, but the amount of language, you already understand your teacher. So, like, if you want to understand people on the street, you got to listen to people on the street. But they're like, so there's people who definitely get wrapped up in this kind of school system and expect it to teach them, and they just kind of go up the rungs and that kind of thing. But it's like, nah, bro, I'm not letting the schools teach me, but I'm going back home and reinforcing what they done taught me. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Or coming back and answering questions of something I came across. But at that point, there wasn't a whole bunch wasn't at least had a passing familiarity with. But yeah, I would definitely do those things. I think it's definitely beneficial if somebody's more in advance. I would say it's the most beneficial when you're in that like 1,000 hours to 1,500 hour mark. I think that's the most, right when you're in that brink of I'm about to output. I think going to a school it would be like massive. I think it would have the most bang for your buck. I think before that, seeing how people are at like a more beginner level in there in Mexico, they don't really get to enjoy the country. They don't really get to enjoy their host family. Like a lot of people in my host family was telling me, a lot of people were in school, and or a lot of people were getting there as a beginner and they weren't able to properly enjoy the country. They didn't notice things. Like I would point things out that I noticed, and I was able to have a conversation like, hey, excuse me, sir, like why exactly is this like that? And it would fill me in on something about culture or interesting things that kind of go on or whatever that like they just have no idea. Like it just kind of goes over their head, right? Because they're they don't understand any of the signs. They can't understand people talking to them. Maybe they can read some of the signs, right? But for me, I'm walking around. I can read every sign. I understand everything. I can understand the radio when the Uber driver and he's driving and is playing someone on the radio. I'm listening. Oh, there's going to be a parade today. Oh, then the mayor is going to be having a speech. Oh, okay, interesting. And I can ask the Uber driver questions about the parade, and then he'll give me some history of this. Oh, you should, and you know what I'm saying. And it's just a different thing. So I think you should at least be in that 1,000 to 1,500 hour mark to really get the bang for the buck. If I were to recommend it, also to pick a school, this also research heavily the format of the school. I'll also post a link to the school in the description, if you so choose. But the school isn't perfect, right? I think the school is really good. I love the structure and way they do it, but it's not going to be perfect. I think for it to be perfect, the host family you're gonna love, the teachers you're gonna love. They're fucking awesome. The students are cool for the most part. It's not that they're not cool. It's more so they're like, it's just Duolingo type. You know what I mean? So they're cool people, but it's like you just have different. Often, I just had different goals. I had more higher aspirations, basically, um, when I was there. So, but other than that, like it's not really anything personal. It's more so just I just wanted different things, and so when I was there, but yeah, bro, like everything's gonna be cool. Everything's gonna be fun. No school's gonna be perfect. You gotta research and ask questions. I was emailing them about, hey, different schools, like, hey, how is this structured? If they didn't have particular details on the website, that kind of thing. But I think if someone's gonna come here, they should definitely not sit in a hotel. Right, that's like to me like the worst. Like the big part of my ability, my confidence, and things like that was interacting with my host family, and when they invited people over, and now I got to interact with them, and then we would go to an event or some random thing, and I'm going. Now we're over. Okay, now we're over here. Like that's the thing that like the key to it as well. Getting that full immersion environment, like whether right after school you're going home, you're talking to your host family, or you're going hanging out with other students to go to the mall or do whatever, and you're interacting with somebody constantly. So for me, that's the biggest thing. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like I would highly recommend it. Oh crap, I gotta speak Spanish. Okay. Bueno, entonces, sí, creo que antes de terminar ese video, ahora tengo que hablar más en español. En ese caso, voy a intentar, bueno, más o menos que voy a intentar hablar como, no, la verdad, ya acabo de decir todo lo que querías decir, así que no sé exactamente lo que realmente si vale la pena decir lo que tengo que decir. Solamente eso es como una demostración de mi habilidad actual y por eso no sé. Bueno, entonces, de hecho, bueno, hablando con mis amigos en la escuela, hablando con personas y nativos de esa ciudad, había tenido conversaciones muy interesantes y muy profundas con esas personas y por eso podía como desarrollar mi habilidad de hablar y de conversar y expresarme. Creo que eso era lo más importante para mí en ese momento. Bueno, todavía, de hecho, es como conseguir esa habilidad. Ya podía hablar sobre la gran mayoría de cosas, pero hablando de la vida, hablando de emociones, hablando de personas, hablando de eventos en mi vida, los eventos más impactantes en mi vida. Creo que eso también es algo muy importante para hablar. Y para mí, hablar de esas cosas, pero también tener esa experiencia, visitando una isla, por ejemplo, fuimos a una isla en el medio de un lago y estuvimos comiendo tacos por encima de esa isla, bueno, al lado de una estatua gigante y estuvimos comiendo y no sé, charlando, hablando. Hubo un montón de música muy bullosa y o yo tenía que como escuchar y distinguir lo que estaba diciendo un grupo de nativos hablando entre sí con mucha música al fondo. Para esos momentos, eh, momentos fueron o eran muy importantes para mi habilidad de desarrollar el idioma. Y claro, todavía no puedo, a ese punto no puedo hablar 100% como si fuera un nativo. Claro que no, pero me siento más cómodo, me siento más tranquilo cuando estoy hablando español. Y no tengo que, antes estaba tratando de hablar muy rápido, pero ahora en ese momento no estoy tratando, no me centro o no me fijo mucho en mi velocidad. No estoy tratando de hablar como súper rápido para fingir que ya, sí, mira qué rápido que soy. Puedo hablar sobre cualquier cosa y tan rápido y ya. Y es como, creo que eso fue una forma de esquivar la gramática de no, bueno, si yo digo algo así o digo algo mal, por el hecho que estoy hablando tan rápido, es más difícil de notar. Y creo que eso bueno, era un truco para mí, para esquivar esa responsabilidad de hablar con más certeza, para hablar con más precisión, bueno, más correctamente, básicamente. Y por eso ahora creo que en ese momento estoy tratando de lograr esa habilidad, pero la verdad no sé cuánto tiempo voy a seguir estudiando español, voy a seguir intentando mejorarlo, porque a ese punto, claro que puedo hablar español, no sé, no tengo que pensar demasiado en lo que digo, no tengo que hacer demasiado, ya tengo un nivel suficiente para hacer la gran mayoría de las cosas. Tal vez en el futuro si de repente bueno, voy a vivir en México o en algún lugar hispanohablante, entonces claro que sí, voy a seguir mejorando el español, mejorando mi nivel en el idioma, claro, eso es obvio que voy a hacer eso, pero si voy a quedarme en Texas, sí es bueno del hecho que sí puedo hablar español, que puedo hablar personas o como puedo ayudar a, a conectar la gente que no habla español con la gente que sí habla español y como traducir entre los dos grupos y hacer todo lo que pueda para como crear esos enlaces las varias comunidades que hay en mi ciudad. Pero la verdad, no sé. Solo a ese punto, creo que voy a gastar más como los siguientes, no sé, 3, 4 meses estudiando español un poquito más. Pero a ese punto, especialmente después de ese viaje, ya no tengo tantas ganas de seguir estudiando el idioma. Y claro, después de hacer todo eso, ay, no sé. Sí, quiero mejorarlo, quiero hablar, quiero hacer muchas cosas en el idioma, pero ahora estoy pensando en aprender otro. Y claro que eso, creo que eso idioma, bueno, es muy probable que ese idioma va a ser ruso, pero quién sabe, tal vez hay otro idioma, no sé, pero por ahora estoy muy contento con el nivel que tengo y ahora estoy tratando de pulir mi español por un poquito más tiempo. Pero después de eso no sé qué voy a hacer. Tal vez voy a tomar un descansito y dejar de estudiar el idioma tanto y solo disfrutar el contenido, disfrutar la presencia de personas que hablan español, claro, pero y también de la familia, de cualquier persona. A ese punto solo quiero disfrutar el idioma. Después de como esos 3 meses que vienen, sí, no sé, pero sí, creo que más o menos a ese punto. Y claro que ahora mismo estoy tratando de hablar más lento porque estoy pensando mucho. Bueno, no mucho, pero estoy tratando de vigilar mis palabras para notar si estoy cometiendo uno de los errores que aprendí en la escuela. Y por eso que estoy hablando un poquito más lento que me acostumbro, algo así. em, que me acostumbro, creo que sí. Pero si no pasa nada. Y si hablamos mucho, si de hecho, si no trato de pensar mucho en lo que digo, puedo hablar muy rápido sin problemas. Tal vez tengo que mejorar mi fluidez un poquito más porque hay veces que hago muchos pausos y eso también puede causar, no puede causar problemas, pero lo que pasa es que si yo estoy tratando de hablar 100% como un nativo. Entonces, no pausar tanto, no tener tantos titubeos, es algo que me serviría para hablar, para sonar como si fuera un nativo. Pero en ese momento, realmente mi meta a ese punto no es hablar como un nativo, es más hablar como alguien, no quiero tener límites, no quiero tener obstáculos cuando estoy hablando español. Eso para mí es lo más importante, tener esa habilidad de hablar, de reaccionar a esos momentos inesperados, de tener de no tener, bueno, de tener mucha energía, de ser muy agradable en el idioma, de comunicar mi personalidad verdadera, eh, es lo más importante para mí en esa situación, ahora mismo, y no es hablar como nativo. Claro, hay veces que puedo, a ese punto, creo que la mayoría de las personas que no son de México, al menos al inicio creen que soy nativo, pero después, claro, no sé, dependiendo de la situación, es muy fácil, es muy fácil o es más fácil notar que no soy un nativo, claro. Depende mucho de la situación, porque si estamos hablando de momentos cortos, de una plática bonita, pero muy cortita, entonces claro que puedo fingir o engañar a un nativo para que piensan que no soy un nativo. Em, pero después de hacer eso, nada, no sé. Para mí, no sé. Solamente estoy tratando de hacer lo más que pueda para lograr una habilidad que soy orgulloso de tener. Pero sí, no, creo que eso es todo. No sé realmente si hay algo más que quería añadir. Solamente que tengo que practicar más. De hecho, eso voy a estar leyendo más en voz alta para como mejorar mi fluidez. Porque hay veces cuando estoy hablando y tratando de pronunciar palabras que todavía mi pronunciación no puede seguir el ritmo de mi habla y por eso, porque hay como leves movimientos de la boca que estoy haciendo o cometiendo me, o- que me cuesta o que cambia la forma. Es que tengo que aprender más cómo mover la boca dependiendo de la palabra, dependiendo de la estructura. Y por eso que tengo que aprender más, volverme más cómodo pronunciando, leyendo en voz alta, hablando más rápido. Pero son cosas pequeñas. La verdad no es algo, no tengo mucha prisa con eso, no es algo que es sumamente importante que se debe aprender ya. Pero eso solamente, no sé, es que después de cumplir todas como las metas que tenía, ahora estoy tratando de inventar más, no sé, inventar más. Pero sí, no, creo que eso es todo. La verdad, no sé si yo debo hablar por más tiempo. No, creo que es suficiente. Bueno, ahora vamos a cambiar al inglés. Um, but yeah, so I think that's my level. I don't even know if there's like a noticeable gap in my ability to speak Spanish. So a native would have to tell me honestly, because I don't feel anything in truth. I don't feel like I feel like I'm more fluent, but I still have these little hiccups in my ability. I actually got my pronunciation evaluated as well, and they were kind of noticing those things. Like there's like slip ups that I do. I don't know if those things have dissipated with time, but a few months ago I got my kind of pronunciation evaluated by someone who's like a language coach. And yeah, they said I had a lot of native things that were very native, but I would have a lot of slippage and there was no clear pattern. So I'm trying to work on that because why not? Like why not just keep working on it? I guess we'll see how long that lasts before I get burnt out of that too. I mean I did it for years, so it's not like I'm not too worried that I'll get super burned out or anything, but whatever. I'm just doing more stuff. I'm probably going to be faffing about with Spanish for a few more months to see if there's anything else I really want to gain out of it. And really, it's pretty much, it's like, it sounds like I'm doing a lot, but I'm not going to be doing much. I'm going to be reading out loud. I'm going to be still enjoying my telenovelas while watching out for the grammar that I need to learn. Um, and then I'm going to be, that's pretty much it, honestly. Enjoying content, watching, kind of finding that out, reading out loud, and maybe doing a little Anki because now I got Migaku. So I'm probably going to be doing more like read. I'm going to try to read more. That's always a plan. I always say I'm going to read more, and I never read more. But I'm going to try to read more. I'm going to just say it at least, and then we'll just call it from there. So yeah, I think that's it. Appreciate y'all for watching. Hopefully this has been sufficient for y'all that are learning Spanish and were curious about my journey and where I'm at. Um, Hopefully, like I said, hopefully this has been useful, or maybe not. And I've just been rambling for 40 plus minutes in the camera, and it is what it is. So appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. Ciao. Do your thing. Cuídense.